Welcome to Let's Make a Game, a channel about making computer role-playing games using the free program Twine and the Sugarcube format for Twine. In this video, I'm going to continue our series on combat, and specifically I'm going to deal with checking whether the combat is over because of everyone on one side being killed. So we're not dealing with the case where the combat ends because the enemy decides to run away, and we're not dealing with the case where the combat ends because the player decides that the player characters will run away, but we're dealing with the situation where there's a sort of forced stop because all of one side is dead. And we've got all this code that does stuff like gives a message that says click on an enemy to have bold cypress tree attack. In other words, letting us know that it's our turn and it's this particular character's turn to attack, and we want to put conditions on those on that code so that it doesn't keep doing that when the combat is over. So let's run through a combat, and I'll show you what it looks like. So we miss completely. Oh, we killed one. Killed another one. Nice. Alright, so one of ours is dead. Of course, in real life would be like in a full game if we were having the option of the foes running away or us running away. One or both of those things would probably have happened by now, but because we haven't coded those, we'll continue and sort of to the death. All right. So things are getting pretty desperate. One character each. And the final enemy kills the final player character. And we get the message, you have been destroyed. And so as we can see, it's working. We only have that message. There's no message that says, click on a picture to have such and such attack them or anything like that. So obviously it's working. So let's have a look at the code that makes that possible. So you will probably notice from last time, if you were here last time, that there's an extra page in this main cycle which goes from display to enemy to target to strike. It used to go to next attacker and then back to display. Well, now it goes to strike to victory check, which is the new page, and then to next attacker and then to display. So we've added a new page, and that's where most of the changes are going to be. There's also some changes in display. And there is a new variable, which is O, standing for over. Where have I put it? I haven't quite put things in alphabetical order because I wanted to group things, so it's a little bit confusing. Where is it? Seriously. Ah, there we go. Sorry. Okay, so $O is initially set to 0, and it's set to 1 when the combat is over. So it's another flag, what we call a flag, which means that it's either 0 or 1, with 1 indicating that some particular thing has happened. All right. So let's have a look at victory check, which is where most of the new code is. I mean, I suppose obviously previously strike said include, it now says include victory check, whereas previously it would have said include next attacker, but I guess that's kind of obvious. So let's look at victory check. So this is a new page. So we have the variable $Z, one of the temporary variables, set to 0, and as the note says, it's set to 1 if any defender is alive. So we're only looking at whichever side is defending because, of course, they're the only side that can be destroyed. Now, there are hypothetical sort of future cases where that might not be true. So, for example, we might have spells, and the spells can cause damage to the caster, and it might be possible for the last player character to die from casting a spell. And so there may be cases in the future where that's not true, where we have to look at both the attacker and the defender. But at the moment, we don't have any way for the attacker to destroy their last character, so we only have to look at the defender. So the first thing we do is we ask who the defender is, and we set $Y, another temporary variable, to the number of characters they have. So if $DE is equal to 0, which is the player characters, then we set Y equal to $C, which is the number of player characters. Otherwise, the only other possibility is that $DE is 1, and therefore it's the enemy's attack. We set Y equal to $E, which is the number of enemy player characters. And then we have a for loop, which is $X, which goes from 1 to Y. So we're looking at every character in the defending side. And then if $H, square bracket $DE, end square bracket $X, end square bracket is over 0, in other words, if the hit points of the number X character on the side $DE is over 0, in which case they're alive, then we set Z to 1. So this flag is set to 1. It means that there's at least one defender that is left alive. And then, once we've finished the for loop, we have an if, else if structure. So if Z is equal to 1, then we just include next attacker. So in that case, well, there's at least one defender left alive. That's usually going to be the case, of course. There's at least one defender left alive, so we don't need to do anything special related to the end of the fight. So we just go straight to display. Sorry, we go straight to next attacker. Otherwise, so if Z is 0, in other words, if the defenders have been wiped out, what happens depends on the value of DE. If $DE is equal to 0, which means that the defenders are the player characters, then we make an addition to $M, which is the message that's going to be printed, and that message says line break, which is that less than BR greater than, you have been destroyed. We set the variable O to 1 to indicate that the combat is over, and then we include display. So we get rid of next attacker. Next attacker is the page where we find who is the next person to make an attack. So exactly what the name of the page says. Well, we don't need to do that because the fight's over, so we go straight to display. And if DE is not equal to 0 and Z is not equal to 1, that is the situation where all of the enemies have been destroyed. So we do almost the same as this, except that the message is different. The message is line break, you have killed all your foes. And then we set O equal to 1, and then we go to display. Now, in a finished game, it wouldn't be, we'd probably have two different values for O, because two different things need to happen. If the player characters have all been killed, well, that's the end of the game. Whereas if the enemies have all been killed, well, that's just the end of the combat, and we go on with whatever the main flow of the game is. They continue their journey, or, you know, whatever happens next. But of course, in this program, we only have the combat, so the result is the same in either case. But we probably, in a full game, would have maybe we'd set O to 2 if the monsters were all killed, and to 1 if the player characters were all killed, or just some way to differentiate the two of them. But anyway, so we've either decided no, the combat's not over, and we've just gone straight on to the next attacker, or we've decided yes, it is over, and therefore we need to add to the message that we're going to print in display, and we set O to 1. And the only other thing we need to do is in display, we need to prevent certain things happening, which I'll now go through. So the first one is when we're displaying the pictures of the enemies, we make a slight change to the code. We had the situation where we go through each enemy. So we have a for loop that goes from 1 to $E, which is the number of enemies. And if their hit points is less than 1, then we print the image that is orc D, which is that picture of the monster with a red cross over it to indicate that it's dead. And this is the new thing. It used to say else if $AT equals 1. Well, now it says if $AT equals 1 or $O is equal to 1, then we just print the image orc, which is the picture of the living enemy. Otherwise, we print the picture orc, but it's a link. So the only new thing is if O is equal to 1, even if it's currently set that the player characters are attacking, print the picture not as a link. Because if we printed it as a link and the combat was over, the player could click on that monster picture and it would try to run an attack, and that of course wouldn't make any sense because the combat's has already ended, presumably in this case with the death of the player characters. So and that is it, other than there's one more, which is that when we are being attacked, after every attack we print the message and then we have a link that says continue. So it says enemy 2 strikes at such and such but misses, enemy 3 strikes at such and such and hits for such and such damage, enemy 4 strikes at such and such and hits for such and such damage, slaying them. And then we have a little link that we have to press, which is continue, to go on to the next enemy, or the next, to go on to the next enemy. And it used to say if $AT is equal to 1, in other words, if the current side that's attacking is the monsters, then we give them this link, because if the current side that's attacking was the player characters, we wouldn't have a link to continue. We would have a message that says click on the picture of the enemy that you want to kill. But now it just says if $AT is equal to 1 and $O is equal to 0. Because if $AT is equal to 1 and $O is equal to 1, then that indicates that the monsters have killed all the player characters. So I think I was wrong when I set up here that O being equal to 1 would mean all the player characters were dead. I think it would mean all the monsters were dead. If $AT were equal to 0 and $O were equal to 1, yes, that would mean that the player characters had killed all the monsters. So sorry about that. That was my mistake. So now I've lost it. Right. So it's in the middle where we press the image. So instead of having the link to continue always appearing when $AT is equal to 1, we only have it when $AT is equal to 1 and $O is equal to 0. In other words, when the combat is still continuing. And similarly, we only have the link. We only have this one appearing when $AT is equal to 0 and $O is equal to 0. In other words, when the player characters are attacking and the combat is still continuing. So this comment is sort of slightly out of date. But anyway, so that's how we change the code so that it doesn't give us the option to continue when the combat is over. As I say, I would like to also put in the option for the monsters to run away and the option for the player characters to run away. And that's what I'll be doing in future videos. But I hope that what I did today was useful or interesting to at least some of you, and I hope you will tune in next time.